Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys our APA retirement finals. If you guys haven't seen our first week 1 through semifinals like movie that we did last week, please go check it out. I thought it was a pretty good video. It had a lot of really fun games, and this league has been a really fun send-off to Generation 8 in general. This is a Generation 8 league, as per no new Pokemon. It's a Natdex league on Showdown with a bunch of old APA guys that wanted to get back into Pokemon, and unfortunately for them, I've been playing since they stopped in Gen 7, so my skills were up at the tippy top of their peak in Gen 8 when I played in this league, so we ended up going 10-2 up to this point, including playoffs, and we're going up against John, who's only lost one other time the entire season. He's had a killer season. He's actually been uploading his run. I'm going to go ahead and link him in the description below. If you haven't checked out John Jr., great content, very analytical, he knows his stuff, he's a great player, so please go check out John in the description below. And if you guys enjoy today's video and you haven't subbed to me, please be sure to do so. I'm so close to 2,000 subs, especially considering I just hit 1,000 in August. I would really appreciate it a ton if you subbed and helped me get to that 2K mark. It would mean the world to me if we could get there within 6 months of hitting 1,000. That would be an awesome achievement. But yeah, with that being said, we are going to go over the matchup just quickly, briefly, really quick. You can see it below me. If you haven't watched our video from before, our team consists of Tornadus Therian, Slowking, Mienshao, Comfey, Steelix, Porygon, Mega Tyranitar, Victini, Rillaboom, Archeops, and Ice-Q. Regenerator plus switch button basically is how we end up going. I think Snowy just jumped off my bed and went behind me. I'm hoping she's not getting into shenanigans on the floor. I think she left the room though. But John's team is also below me. It's pretty darn scary. It's a team that's a very John Jr.-esque team. It consists of Garchomp, his dog, Buzzwole, Registeel, Volcanion, Drapion, the Kangaskhan, Mega Mawile, Tapu Koko, Starmie, Alolan Raichu, and Torterra. Yes, he has Chomp Mega Maw Koko in Generation 8, which is... Sorry, phone was ringing on there. Which is pretty darn insane, to be completely honest. I can't believe that he ended up swinging that. But he did, and we're going to have to try and stop it here. But I do think we have a pretty good matchup. The biggest threats to me on his side of the screen is going to be Garchomp. Garchomp is always scary. Some kind of Swords Dance variant can really go crazy on me if I, let things get aptly chipped, or things like that. Buzzwole is actually really hard for me to switch into. I don't have great Buzzwole counterplay, being that my typings that typically resist Buzzwole don't really appreciate it, and it's really one Stone Edge or Ice Punch away from rocking my Tornadus. So lots of scary things can happen there. Volcanion can be really annoying with like a Subtoxic variant. Mega Mawile is a Mega Mawile, and it always demands respect. I actually think we have a pretty good Mega Mawile matchup, but it always demands respect. Koko is really annoying, and then something I'm really scared of, actually, is Alolan Raichu. If you look at Alolan Raichu, Rising Voltage plus Focus Blast just rips my team. It is very hard for me to deal with it, outside of, like, Rillaboom. Really. So it can be really, really scary. Obviously, I can Rillaboom, then, reset the terrain, outspeed it with things like Torn and, things like that, Scarfurge, but under the terrain, it's a big menace, and if he can find ways to chip down that Rillaboom, or just Psychic it on a switch in and do like 70%, we don't really switch into it later, which can be really, really scary, so we're gonna have to be very, very, very careful about how we deal with that Raichu if it does elect to come. And yeah, that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our team a little bit. First up, we have Tornadus. This time, we're not knockoff, but we are pretty much standard Torn, .exe button. We're Hurricane, U-Turn, Taunt, and Heat Wave. We are just creeping the Starmie, and then we got Max HP a little bit in our special attack, because it actually does really well offensively this week. He doesn't switch into the combination of Hurricane, Heat Wave super well outside of the Koko, and if I can grab free momentum on that Koko, I'll take it any day of the week. We're Taunt over Sludge Wave for the Koko, just to stop things like Garchomp from setting up, stop things like Registeel from resting, or Iron Defensing, whatever they want to do. Stop a Volcanion if it's like a Subtoxic set. Stopping Mega Mawile if we don't kill it with Heat Wave, and we want to make sure that he's not Swords Dancing, and things like that. So there are plenty of uses for the move Taunt, especially for its more fatter passive squad, and hopefully it can do well. I think Hurricane Heat Wave actually hits this team pretty hard, and it's a great pivot overall. Alright, next up we have our Rillaboom, which is going to be a great mid-game breaker / late-game win con, depending on how things go. We're Grassy Seed with Grassy Slide, Swords Dance, Acrobatics, and High Horsepower. If you look at his team, Acro nuking that Buzzwole, and then Grassy Glide plus High Horsepower just kills everything else. Like, it does really, really well, and he does not appreciate it. Because his only grass resist would be Buzzwole, Acro, Registeel, High Horsepower, and Setup Fodder. Volcanion doesn't resist grass, but it doesn't appreciate high horsepower. Drapion, high horsepower. Mega Mawile, high horsepower. Everything else really does not appreciate grassy glides, especially off of +2 set. And if we can use this to break down his team, in particular the Buzzwole, if I can lure it in and hit it with an Acro, even if it's like a Koba Berry variant, I'm completely fine with that trade because chipping down Buzzwole means that my win con at the end can really thrive and do super well. So I'm hoping that Rillaboom can do so. Then we have a Heavy Duty Boots Victini. We are sub 3 attacks this week. Again, if you look at this Pokemon offensively against his team, it does incredible. Blue Flare, Glaciate, Thunderbolt hits everything incredibly hard. Glaciate obviously has the perk of hitting Garchomp very hard, but it's also going to give us the added benefit of slowing things down. So if he wants to pivot from Garchomp into Starmie, or at least going to lower his speed, unless he's like a random Scar Starmie, we'll outspeed that and threaten it with a Thunderbolt. Now, I want Thunderbolt because 1, he's going to be giving me terrain, and 2, I really didn't think I could risk misses on things like Volcanion and Starmie if I'm given the opportunity to hit them. And I don't need to Oko them, and Thunder doesn't Oko most some variants of either of those as well, especially Volcanion. So I figured that the T-Bolt 2-hit KO, especially under terrain, would be kind of worth it. And if he's an offensive Starmie, T-Bolt under terrain will probably knock him out as well. But yeah, if I can find an opportunity to sub down on something passive like the Registeel, or sub down on them all while, sucker punching or switching out, I'm going to be in a good spot with Victini here, and I'm hoping that it pops off and does pretty well. Okay. Then we have a Rocky Helmet Steelix. We're pretty mixed def. We're high horsepower, Stealth Rock, Toxic, and Roar. This thing is going to be a soft check to the Mawile, to the Koko, to the Raichu to an extent. I believe we can live one Focus Blast, and even the Registeel. It can do a lot against a team like this. We are high horsepower just for general damage, and to hit the things that we're supposed to be checking with high horsepower, or Roar to stop any kind of setup, whether that be Garchomp, Buzzwole, Registeel, Koko if it's like an Iron Defense set or something like that, like Iron Defense, Calm Mind, Weakness Policy, some shenanigans like that. We can always phase that guy out. We can also rack up Stealth Rock chip, stall out terrain turns, a bunch of different things. So I think Roar is really important, and it's again going to be a rocker to chip down his team. That's a great natural check to a lot of things on his team, but because of that, it's very pressured. And if he brings a team with a lot of these Pokemon, he can kind of overload and really stress out our Steelix here. Rocky Helm is also next for Koko, going for U-turn, so we're at least punishing it and chipping it down into range of other things on our team. Then we have a pretty much max Spadef AV Slowking. This thing is a good catch-all check to things like Starmie, Volcanion. We even take on Special Koko pretty well. With an AV in our massive Spadef stat, we super eat those hits, like very well. So we'll be able to throw off Scalds, Shadow Balls for the Starmie to be able to hit it super effectively, so we can't just like recover stall us forever, or kind of pivot in and flip turn, so that we beat the thing that we're supposed to be checking. We have Flamethrower to hit things like Registeel and Buzzwole with one move, as well as the Mega Mawile to not make it super free as a switch in on us if he's not worried about Scald. But even then, I don't think John will do that. We at least prevent like setup if he has a little bit of chip, and can kill him with a Flamethrower. And then we also have Power Gem as a means of hitting Volcanion, because if Volcanion comes, I think it's going to be like some sub-toxic shenanigans. Now, I don't think that'll come, just because I do have Cleric options and I have a lot of regen on my team, so even if you're toxicing me, I'm getting in and out with a ton of Pokemon on my team, so I'm not 100% sure if he's going to bring that, but if he does, I wanted something to be able to hit it and break its sub consistently, and even if he's like a weird max Spadef set, Power Gem will break his sub, which is nice. Then, we have our win con, which is going to be Mega Tyranitar. We are Stone Edge, High Horsepower, Rock Polish, and Ice Punch. Rock Polish this week because I think that if I can get the Rock Polish up and I have app chip on things like the Buzzwole, the Garchomp, and the Mega Mawile, we can just win the game. And Registeel. We can just win the game with this guy. Like, just straight up, we can win the game. Adamant, Stone Edges, and High Horsepowers rip through his team. Ice Punch is basically for Garchomp, and then the other two moves hit everything else incredibly hard. So I'm thinking that we can scrape together a win here. We just got to be smart at how we do it. Alright, we can jump into the battle itself, and you're going to see that John actually did not bring the Alolan Raichu. He actually, you'll see, he brought a bit of a more passive team in general. His team is a little bit more bulk-oriented, and we'll kind of see that as we play throughout. And that really took a big weight off my shoulders, man. I was terrified of Alolan Raichu, absolutely petrified of Raichu. Some kind of nasty plot variant, or even just Life Orb 4 attacks really put on a ton of pressure on my team, and I had to be very careful about how I played around it. Now I don't really have to worry about that anymore, so that's going to be really nice for me. Now, going into this, I am going to lead off with my Steelix. I know that seems weird, being that Steelix loses to the Buzzwole, Starmie, and even Registeel to an extent, as well as Garchomp leads, but Torn leads well into everything minus Koko, and I had a really, really big feeling that John would be leading Coco, just because no drawback, because even if I lead Steelix, he gets a U-turn and can go into whatever he wants to afterwards. At least this way, I'm not immediately put on the back foot and put into the Vortex. I at least get something out of my turn 1. So I figured Steelix was going to be my best lead, and I was correct. He did end up leading the Coco, which is really nice for me, because I'm going to be able to get my Stealth Rock. He does have the pretty free Starmie pivot if he wants to make that play. But one, this will let me know if he spin, and it'll allow me to kind of get momentum if he wants to spin. If he wants to flip turn and get out of there, then something else is he's going to be taking rocks. Now, he does go ahead and he does spin right here. This turn, I'm actually going to like to go for a Scald, just to try and catch something in on a pivot right here. As the Coco does come in, and I was right. He didn't want to stay in there, which is nice. And you're going to see him roost. You see I stay and click Scald again. In hindsight, I don't think this was my best play, right? Because he very well could be physical and just nuke me with a wild charge. In my head, I was like, I don't think physical comes here, and I eat up a Thunderbolt, and you're typically going to see more special Cocos, and I can bait for a Scald Burn, or punish him roosting, or punish him U-turning, because I didn't think he would Thunderbolt here with my Steelix in the back still, but this wasn't a risk I needed to take, and I kind of want to like at least acknowledge that, because I don't think this was a very good play. I think this is me being a little bit aggressive, a little bit too early, and I play a lot more safe the rest of the game, and I remember realizing this when I was playing too, like, okay, I didn't need to make that play. I shouldn't be doing plays like that, because I'm not in a position where John can really break through my team just yet. So he is going to go ahead and roost up. I do Scald here this turn. I don't get the burn, and I kind of realized it, like I said, like, okay, this isn't a good idea. He does go for the wild charge here, which is nice because my aggressive bad play kind of plays off as he's going to stay really, really low right here. I'm going to get up my rocks again because I'm fine with him spinning. If he doesn't spin, he flip turns, gets momentum. Again, his team's taking rocks, and rocks are staying up for the foreseeable future. If he spins, I'm going to get a little bit of momentum with my Slowking here. This next turn, he is going to go for a Thunderbolt and do 19, showing he's not the strongest Starmie in the world. He's definitely not Life Orb. I mean, obviously we saw that, but definitely not a boosting item at the very least. And we're going to be able to eat that up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and just go for a Shadow Ball. Now, we get a Spadef drop right here. This is pretty big. I did get like min rolled on this Shadow Ball, which you'll see a little bit later, but the reason this Spadef drop is huge is now because he can't out-recover me. He can't outstall me. So in my head, I have an incredibly free Scald here. Even if he does elect to stay in and try and recover, I can always Shadow Ball the next turn, or I can make the Scald play again. He doesn't immediately threaten me. He's only doing 19 with Thunderbolt, and he will die if he attacks and I Shadow Ball, and him recovering doesn't gain him much ground. It also wastes a recover PP, which is going to be nice for me. Now, so because of this, I have a very free Scald, and I can kind of bait a burn on something that doesn't want to be burned. There's not a single thing on this team that wants to be burned, other than the Starmie. So I'm going to go ahead and throw off a Scald. We actually see a Garchomp pivot, which is incredible. I'm going to do 31 and actually burn this guy. Now, I'm going to stay in this next turn, realizing that I can get Toxic, but knowing that this thing is burnt, I know it can't really threaten me. If he wants to get up his rocks, that's completely fine with me, because getting Scald Chip on this thing is, again, another roadblock to Tyranitar essentially eliminated. Even if he's like a Yachi Berry variant or something of the sorts, I can always Scald here, bring him down very low, and he's basically a non-factor the rest of the game, which is incredible for me. He does elect a Toxic, which is fine. Regen plus Switch is going to go on throughout the game. It does make it a little bit more annoying dealing with the Starmie, as now that I'm Toxic, he can kind of recover stall me, but I do have means around that. So I am going to pivot out here into Steelix, kind of expecting a switch out into something like a Tapu Koko, or expecting a switch out into, you know, something of the sorts, or potentially a Registeel. Really just Koko is kind of the main thing I was expecting on him, predicting me to switch. But he actually goes Starmie, which is a little bit safer of a plan, definitely makes sense. I pivot Torn here, because this is always going to allow me to either U-turn, he stays in, I go Slowking, don't really worry about it too much, or I force him out and I gain a little bit of momentum my way. Which I do force him out. He's probably not very specially defensive and knows he can't do much damage to me. And taking damage on that Starmie and potentially getting to it KO'd isn't a good idea for John. So he is going to go ahead and switch into the Koko. Shows to be Helmet as well, which is really good information for me. I'm going to regen all of that off, obviously, but now I know going forward that he is Helmet. And if something's in range like Rillaboom or T-Tar, I can be careful about clicking contact moves. Now, the next turn, we're going to get back out into our Torn on the Starmie. He is going to stay in this time, which is fair. Just throw off a Thunderbolt, but even in the terrain, that's doing 25 to Slowking. So, again, I'm not too worried about it. He is going to recover this turn. I believe I just throw off a Shadow Ball. We're going to bring him down. That one does 57. So that 50 roll was really low, and I think this was that was like min-max. So 57 is an incredible amount. He does die here if he doesn't recover again. And being that I'm low and I'm Toxic, he's always going to recover, right? So I have a pretty free pivot out, actually, into my Rillaboom. I don't expect a Scald, if anything, that's for sure. So I didn't think, you know, a burn was a big risk right here. And this is going to allow me to punch the hole in this team that I need to, right? because once I get in right here, he needs to Stormy. He can't sack this off just yet. It does really well into a lot of my team. It keeps the rocks away, it checks Steelix, it checks Slowking now that I'm poisoned, and it even offensively checks things like Victini and Tyranitar to an extent if it baits a burn. But, so because of this, I feel like I have a very free sword stance, and even if he stayed in, he's kind of baiting for a Skull Burn, which I don't think John will do. An SD in the face of this Registeel, he's going to prove to be very bulky, obviously. He does live, and he gets off a Toxic and shows Rocky Helmet once again, but I know that I'll be able to knock him out with the next one, which is incredible. And again, there's not much on his team that really wants to take this guy on right now. We go ahead and knock out this Registeel. He's going to get out into his Rillaboom right here, and you're going to see he's going to go ahead and actually be Scarf, throw off the Leech Life, but we live on literally 1 HP. So whatever the EVs that I decided to build for this team 2 weeks ago, they ended up coming up clutch. Again, I literally lived on 1 HP, like quite literally 1. And I'm able to live that, throw off an Acro, and knock it out. So Rillaboom isn't going to be winning this game, and I don't have any terrain resetting abilities now. But it was able to break through phenomenally. No more Registeel, no more Buzzwole. And Garchomp is at 27%. If I can just force this Mawile to lose its Intimidate and Mega Volt, just take a little bit of chip, just a little bit of chip, I'm going to be able to win with my Tyranitar. And I just need to position myself in a way in which I can do so. Now, I'm going to go Steelix again, expecting something like a Koko to potentially come in. He hard switches out because it's not worth the U-turn chip to take Rocky Helmet, which is definitely fair. And I'm going to go ahead and just throw off a high horsepower right here, as the Starmie is going to come in. I'm going to go out into my Tornadus here. I don't expect a Thunderbolt. If he wants to Scald, that's completely fine with me. Even if I get burned, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I'm going to be able to U-turn out again, force it to recover, and get into my T-Tar. Now, this is going to be an instance of, I've talked about this before, and I think when Pokemon can do this, it really makes them a solid offensive threat. And Pokemon that can't do this are the Pokemon that end up struggling. Even if they can break through 99% of the metagame, if they can't kind of find ways to push past their own checks, I'm not a big fan of them. And this is going to be an instance of T-Tar doing so, because obviously I don't win right here. But John is going to go ahead and recover up. And again, John recognizes he needs this Pokemon. He cannot sack it off. Plus, even if I don't click Crunch here, and I click Stone Edge, he dies unless he gets a burn, and that's just not a worthwhile risk for him right now. So I'm just going to click Stone Edge into the Mawile, because I can't win right now, but what I can do is I can chip him down immensely, and I can also force him to burn his Intim and then go ahead and Mega Evolve the next turn. If he doesn't, again, that's completely fine because I still have my Steelix in the back, and Mega Mawile isn't doing much to a defensive Steelix, much less a regular Mawile with no held item, basically. So I get this Stone Edge off. He's now in range if I get a Rock Polish up as a Mega to die to high horsepower. I just need him to Mega Evolve, and all of the pieces are set in motion for me to potentially win with our Mega T-Tar. Now, Steelix is going to come out right here. He is going to click a very safe play rough. If he had like Brick Break or something like that, he probably would have clicked it in that instance just because it hit Steelix as well. But again, I was fine with Steelix taking that chip at this point. I really don't need Steelix for much other than like pivoting to Koko and this guy and forcing App Chip. Now he's going to be definitely in range, even if he's a super bulky set, only at 56. I just high horsepower this turn. I bring the Starmie down to 48, and the reason I do this instead of what do you call it, Stealth Rocking, is because I'd rather waste a Recover PP than I would a Rapid Spin PP, if that makes any sense. Plus, this is going to allow me to play a little bit more aggressive. Now, I kind of mentioned before, I don't really need Steelix at this point. I really don't feel as if I need him. What I'm going to do on this Recover turn is I'm actually going to end up Toxicking him. Seems a bit odd that I'm going to Toxic him, being that he is Natural Cure. Like, there's no shot he's going to be Analytic on this set, and he would have shown Analytic damage as well at this point. But the reason I Toxic him is because from here, when he throws off this Scald or this Thunderbolt or whatever it may be, now he can't sit in here and Recover Stall my Slowking, and I can kind of force him out in order to burn that Nat Cure and get that Toxic off of him. So he is going to kind of have to do that, kind of realizing that I'm going to go Torn, I'm going to U-turn, go into Slowking, and he's going to start getting very whittled down and things like that very quick. So getting into this Tornadus and U-turning right here is very, very nice for me. I do get it off, obviously. Do 9 to this Koko, and the cards are set. I absolutely eat up anything this wants to go for. Now, if it is a taunt variant, I still can find another opportunity later on the Burned Garchomp, or even the, what do you call it, the Starmie. Or I can use it as a Pokemon to just come in and claim a kill when Mawile's in. So there's a bunch of different uses for T-Tar if he is Taunt. But even if he's Wild Charge, or he U-turns, or he Nature's Madnesses or something like that, I will be able to obviously live the hit and get this Rock Polish up and set up this end game right here. So I do go ahead and Rock Polish this turn. The Koko proves to not be either of those things. He's actually just U-turning. U-turns out, barely does anything. Mawile comes out, and we click that Rock Polish button, and this is the beginning of the end. We're going to go ahead and high horsepower this Mawile. Then the Starmie comes out. Unfortunately, we are not Crunch because I felt like I needed Ice Punch on this set. So we're not Crunch here. But Stone Edge should knock out even max HP Starmies from this range. And he can't do much to me. Unfortunately, I miss. So we just have to avoid a Scald Burn, which we thankfully do. And we just have to hit this next Stone Edge. And he's definitely going to go ahead and drop here, which thankfully we do. The Adamant Stone Edge is coming in clutch here. I don't need to risk any more misses. This Garchomp comes in. It proves to be a Yachi variant, but not anything that's super scary for me at this point. I'm going to go ahead and knock him out. The Coco's going to come out, and I'm once again going to Ice Punch. I even knocked out max HP Coco's from there with Ice Punch because I'm a Mega Tyranitar, and even Fizdef probably died from there. And we're going to go ahead and win this game pretty convincingly. This is probably one of the final games I'm most proud of in my play. Outside of that Slowking play turn 1, or early in the game, I think that was a bit of a bad play. Other than that, I think I played this game very crisply. I think I built a really solid team, and I beat a really solid player, a player who's having a phenomenal season, had an amazing draft. I mean, again, look at these Pokemon that are on his team. So I'm really proud of this one. And I didn't even have to send out the Victini, which is kind of a bummer because I wanted more Victini kills. But again, it shows, again, I feel like I crafted a really solid team, and even if some things went wrong here, I think we had the backbone to potentially back it up with things like Torn and Victini in the back still, that really decimated his team. I think we could have done some work, but yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed these 2 videos in this brief retirement run, please let me know. Let me know if you guys want to see more Showdown content. I play in plenty of Showdown leagues, and I honestly have more fun playing in them because I get to use Mega Tyranitar in them and play against Mega Mawile and, you know, do these National Dex leagues, which more pieces is more fun for me. So if you guys enjoy them as well, please let me know. And yeah, with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.